Welcome to the Stories with Traction podcast. I'm your host, Matt Zaun. Thank you for joining us as we uncover how stories are one of the most important aspects of your business. We'll talk about struggles, victories, and how you can utilize strategic storytelling to inspire those around you to action. Enjoy this episode. I'm extremely excited today because we're going to focus on one of my favorite topics, which is leadership. The good, the bad, the ugly, struggles, victories, how we can actually be better leaders and deliver for our audiences. Because today I am joined by James Witmer, who is the CEO of Witmer Public Safety Group. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Glad to be here.
I'm happy you're here, and I love what you do, and I mean that sincerely, because what you do and what you deliver for your clients, your customers, is so unbelievably important because of who you serve with first responders, and I don't think we talk enough about that as a society. I really don't. I feel like there are men and women out there, first responders, that risk their lives every single day. So your customers, firefighters, that literally run into burning buildings, risking their lives as well as potentially getting severely injured to help other human beings. And that is just, it's so incredible. And I appreciate what you deliver for them. So can you dive a little bit into what you do so our audience understands the makeup of Witmer Public Safety Group?
Yeah, sure. Our organization is made up of sort of sub brands. We have the firestore.com, Officer Store, the EMS Store, a brand called Gideon Tactical, Our Designs, brand called Interstate Arms. So it's an interesting mix of a whole bunch of things. We've got retail locations, which were all at one point acquisitions that we've brought into the fold over the years. And honestly, it's an absolute honor to serve the customers that we do. There's a distinct noble purpose in making sure that first responders have the equipment that they need when they need it, and that their equipment is serviced and functional so that they can be as safe as possible in precarious situations. So it's one of the things that I think is one of the best selling points we have to joining our organization, which is, if you're looking for purpose in your work, being able to take care of the people that take care of us is, I think top of the list, or at least pretty close.
Yeah, absolutely. No, purpose is so unbelievably important, especially when we're talking about leadership. So, and you're right, there's a lot of organizations out there that they tout, what they're doing for the community and, they're changing the world, but legitimately you are changing the world through different communities, because if it wasn't for what you do, first responders wouldn't have what they need to do what they do to make sure that our communities are safe. So what you have going on does have purpose. The individuals that work for your organization, they do have an impact. They should feel a sense of fulfillment. But what about the nitty gritty? What about the challenges that come from the process to deliver for your customers? So how do you keep your team enthusiastic and feeling like they have that sense of purpose when challenging situations arise?
That's a great question. For me, trying to keep them connected and motivated to each other and to their direct reports, regular communication, enabling people to feel heard is something that I find to be really important. And so it may not be a hyper proactive approach to rah speeches to get people motivated, but I find it really valuable to make sure that people feel heard, that their voices reach the right place, and that the things that they see in their roles can make a difference in the way that they work. We see lots of challenges in the way that we can take care of our customers. Right now, obviously, with the state of the world, we've got supply chain issues like crazy. We're dealing with it. We're all dealing with it. and being able to get product to our customers in a timely fashion. There's ticking time clocks on some of the gear that they use, and trying to make sure that they can get product, that meets the approvals in the appropriate time. Working really hard to do that, and trying to keep people motivated in the process, and not having them get down in the dumps when they are dealing with those struggles to get the product to the customer in that timely fashion. Really trying to encourage them. It could be switching to a different product at times if that's something that we could get a hold of sooner. But we do pride ourselves on a wide assortment so that we can, hopefully get our customer the product they need as quickly as possible, even if it is a switch in brand at times.
Sure. No, I really appreciate you mentioning, instead of focusing on rah and motivation, really focusing on creating a culture where your team members can feel heard. And I think that is unbelievably important. Just the fact that they can express what's on their mind and someone is listening to them, because, there's different things, different challenges that could come up that if a team member is expressing, we may not understand what's happening. And then we could figure out problem solution from that. But you mentioned supply chain issues, so I do want to talk about that a little bit. So obviously there's been a lot of challenges in that arena, and it's been extremely frustrating for a lot of leaders across the country where they truly want to deliver for their customers, and there has been different walls that have been put up that is nothing that they've done. It's just, how in the world do they continue to deliver the same either product or service for their customer with what's happening? So is there something that you've done? I know you said that you've switched different vendors when you have had to, but is there different things that you've done along the way in the last few months that has empowered you to continue to deliver value for your customers?
Well, certainly part of that is stocking levels. We're doing our best to, when we can get a hold of product, to buy up more so that we have a better chance of having it available for the customer when they need it. To some extent, so much of what they order is customized, a lot of custom turnout gear, things like that we ultimately don't have any control over. And as noble as it is what our customers do, it doesn't mean that they don't get upset when their product doesn't arrive on time, or when it was ideally originally committed. And that's been, that is the struggle, to try to help them understand, where our hands are tied, where our manufacturers' hands are tied. The supply chain is complicated for a lot of reasons right now. It's not just the small parts or components or pieces. It's not just thread. It's the massive constriction on the labor market that's taken place. Those challenges have been very hard to overcome. We've made changes there, trying to increase especially our entry level wages in the business. Getting up to that livable wage, so that we can keep our customers taken care of, keep our orders shipping out, and trying to get the customer, the product that they need in a timely fashion.
Sure. And I really appreciate your focus on the customer, right? Because it is extremely important to deliver for our customers. And what's interesting to me is you have your customer base that is extremely in tune with their communities. One of the things that I find fascinating is a lot of firefighters, they literally go above and beyond, not only for what they do professionally, but what they do for the community. Like, they're really in tune with what's happening in neighborhoods across the country. And you had mentioned, their passion. They're very passionate individuals. They really want to make a difference. I mean, we talked about purpose, right? Fulfillment, impact, right? They really live that out. Like, it's part of their legacy. It's part of their DNA. And you had mentioned feeling heard. I feel like they're really good listeners to different individuals in their neighborhoods. So what have you done to really connect with different communities around the country to make sure that you as a company are listening to your customers, so that you can change and tweak different things as they're coming up?
Sure. We've got a couple different programs that we work through our marketing team. We've got brand ambassadors that are involved, where they're not. Are they borderline social media influencers? Maybe a little bit, but they're also so plugged into their community and plugged into, their police and fire departments that, we get great feedback on the things that we can do better, on the way that we can serve that customer base better, on the needs of the community. And any feedback that we get from them, we're implementing into, how we alter our web presence, how we take care of that customer, what type of programs that we can run that can really be meaningful for them. So a lot of that is, we've got a pretty solid social media presence. We use that to communicate, to ask questions, to stay engaged, to hear from them and know what they need.
That's great. And again, I really like your customer focused mindset with that. So I want to talk a little bit about your background on you getting into the position that you're currently in to deliver for your customers. So take me back several years from not necessarily the beginning, but when you had an interest for the type of customers that you work with. When did you realize, like, maybe an aha moment where you really need to work with first responders across the country because you saw that need?
Sure. Well, now we're getting into my favorite part of the conversation, which is where I get to,
Awesome.
I get to talk about my dad. My dad was a firefighter at his earliest possible age. He grew up across the street from Rose Tree Fire Department and media, and as a kid, every time the fire bell went off, he'd run to the front door, right to the front window, and he's looking outside and wants to see the fire trucks driving by. And he had an immense passion for the fire service. Still has an immense passion for the fire service. He is currently battling Alzheimer's. He has early onset Alzheimer's. He's only 69 years old, but we've had a diagnosis now for about 11 years.
Wow.
And so my position came about because of what he's battled through. So I've been involved in the business since 2003. I do have an accounting degree, worked for a public accounting firm for a few years before I came back to the family business. And my passion for the fire service is born out of seeing my dad's passion for the fire service and for first responders. My dad had a criminal justice degree. His plan was to become a police officer. My mom said, no, that is not what you're going to do, because I am not okay with that. And so there's obviously a great deal of respect for all those that do make that sacrifice and do risk their lives in that field. But he went the firefighter route and really grew up in that world and stayed engaged. He held every official position in a fire department that there was. He's chief emeritus at East Brandywine Fire Department, but he's obviously unable to continue to actually serve in the fire department. But so that's where my passion came out of for first responders, was out of watching my dad. I remember watching him back, of course, before GPS and any of this was the thing, writing 3x5 cards on how to get to every area in his geographic jurisdiction so that he could be first on the scene. So there's just an immense amount of care that went into taking care of the community. And this was volunteer. This was unpaid time, but he cared so much about being able to arrive quickly and get his apparatus there on scene and make sure that they were doing the right things. And I got to see this firsthand and grew up around it. And, while I'm one of four, I'm the oldest of four, and each of my siblings maybe processed all of that experience differently. Some of them, feeling more the risk of dad's life every time he left. And so they feel that differently. Me, I saw the passion. I saw the joy that he had in being able to serve in this way, to give back to his community. And I know he's felt a sense of rush too, that, even in the process of the risk, the rush of, making a difference in someone's life, protecting, their life or their property. And I saw that. And so it became certainly ingrained in me. I am not a firefighter. I didn't go that route. But in that, process of growing up around it and being just ingrained in it, being brought down to the firehouse as a kid, certainly have a deep respect for what they do and the way they care, and what a tight-knit community it is. I mean, these guys are not just showing up when the bell rings. I mean, they're there, weeknights, weekends, dedicating time, raising money for their fire departments and just seeing that firsthand and knowing how much they love it is really where it all came from for me. And then obviously, he had the vision for starting this business. He saw the needs, in his own fire department, and created a business out of meeting the need that nobody else was able to meet.
Sure. Yeah. What I find fascinating about what you mentioned is, you mentioned family and you mentioned your father, and you and your family have created a very successful organization that's delivered a tremendous amount of value to many different people, but your father didn't lose that sense of service even through all this. So would you say that ideal of service has become a DNA of your organization today? And if so, like what are some things that you can point to that you can say, here's what our team is focused on regarding service?
Sure. Service is a huge component of our business. Even now, we service the SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus that the firefighters wear. If that's out of service, they can't go fight a fire. So we pride ourselves in providing phenomenal service to our customers to make sure that their apparatus is maintained and up to spec, and going to take care of them when they need it most. So service, there's a component that's purely truly servicing the product, and then the general concepts of service to these customers, making sure that their experience with us is as positive as possible, that we're providing them fast delivery of the product that they need. And honestly, the heartache that I feel right now is because of so much product that is hard to get. We're not used to lead times that are out. Jokingly right now, I mean, you could make a baby sooner than you can get a piece of new turnout gear. It's really insane where we're at right now. And it's painful. There's a pain in that, knowing that, we're simply unable to provide for the customer in the speed at which it used to be and what they're used to. And trying our best to get back to that. And we're working with great suppliers who have a ton of that same sort of service mindset and care for public safety. So believe we'll get back there as soon as possible. Know that there's positive changes that are coming, but
Sure. Yeah, no, and it's fascinating to hear that, like, how your father had generational change. So he really had a passion for service. Clearly that was passed on to you. You've kept that within your organization, having that company culture of service. And then now you have the ability to pass it on to the next generation and your children. And I find that fascinating and awesome. I was talking to my wife the other day, and she brought up a situation with me and my son. So clearly a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with my son, not thinking anything of it, me thinking, oh, it's mundane. It's just, I just thought it was a regular conversation, and it meant the world to my son. He had mentioned my wife, like this was a huge turning point, a big aha moment. And it's when I really realized, often as parents, we don't understand sometimes when we're in the moment how big of an impact we could be having on our children, and then think of all the different things that they can be doing in the world. So that one instance could have ripple effects for years to come. And you had mentioned, your father hearing the bell and the different trucks and all these different things, and how much that had an impact on you. And right now, even though you have a lot going on in business and all the different people you're helping, it's amazing what's going to come from your children with what they're seeing. So have you tied in different elements of service with your kids, as well as, are you starting to see an interest in them for fire departments, for firefighters? Take me through that a little bit.
Sure. I don't know if we've quite developed a direct interest in the fire department or police departments or any of that in general, but I had the pleasure of having my oldest daughter actually work for us last summer, and it was massively meaningful. The time spent with her, she'd shown an interest in our embroidery department. We have a value-added services where we do embroidery embellishment and laser engraving and things of that nature. And she'd shown an interest and aptitude, has her own sewing machine at home, and she was doing, some products and creating some drawstring bags and stuff like that she was doing at home. And she was showing interest in that. So I was like, hey, we have this, this thing that our customers really love. And one of the things I love most about the fire service is they love to tell you that they're in the fire service. They are going to wear their job shirt with pride that's got their company logo and their name and their rank on right on their chest. And I love that about them. I love that they're proud of their service and that they want people to know kind of who they are and what they do and who they run with. And I think that's fantastic. And so being able to have my daughter get kind of pulled into that in that department to see, all of these different departments coming through and asking for these customized garments and getting to know that, the work that she was doing was helping them to look great. Both on the job and then out of the job, when they're out to dinner with their wife, still wearing their firefighter gear, because they will.
Sure. That's awesome.
Just knowing that, that was part of it. So we just had that earliest glimpse into that. She's 15 now, and she's looking forward to getting back. We're a couple of weeks away from being out of school, and so I'm excited to get her back in there. And honestly, just from a father-daughter time, it was great bonding for us to engage together. We'd have lunch together in my office, and really, really enjoyed that and being able to hear her perspectives of what she was, seeing in the department and ways that we could even improve right at her, entry level role in that department. It was really fun.
Sure. I really appreciate you mentioning the story of your daughter, and specifically because I feel like often in business, we're going so fast, so furious with different things happening that sometimes, at least for me personally, I have this tendency sometimes to like separate the two, where it's like, all right, here's me focused on my business, here's me focused on my children. And sometimes I get frustrated when the two start to blend. But then I also realize that my sons are really taking more of an interest in what I do in business. And they're coming alongside of me saying, hey, can you teach me this? Hey, what about this? And it's just been fascinating to me. My oldest son has taught me different elements of marketing. He's 8 years old, and he's teaching me how to be a better marketer because he is obsessed with watching marketing videos on YouTube. It's the funniest thing. And for me personally, as a father, I've realized like I need to pay attention to where their interests are, because this could be a huge learning opportunity that they're not going to get in school. I mean, let's just not kid ourselves. They're not going to get some of these elements in school. And your daughter's the same way. Like there's no way she would have learned different elements in school with what she learned through you. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so much power in that. As individuals, that we do care for our family, we also care for our business. How do we utilize both to create this lasting change? So I very much appreciate you mentioning that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in it, right? I mean, as
sure.
Working for my father, working for my mother, and having this family business, and having my siblings having been in the business each at different times as well. We definitely saw that true value, the importance of family and connectedness, and that passing down, the passing down of the stories and the experiences and the leadership challenges and all those types of things. And so I look forward to, as my kids get older, I'm not forcing them into the business by any stretch, but certainly as they express interest, having them involved, and then having that time to integrate them into that work experience and to kind of learn from what I'm going through and the highs and the lows of it. Yeah, it's fun.
Sure. I appreciate you mentioning that. So I have one more question for you to unpack and dive into, and then we'll wrap up. I work with a lot of companies that are family-focused businesses, right? So they started as a family and they're in it together, and they've had tremendous amount of change in multiple different arenas. And I've seen it done very, very well. And I've also seen many, many challenges because of it. So for anyone listening that isn't a family business, that they are seeing a lot of success from a business perspective, what is something that you would mention to them that, hey, here's how you not only deliver more value for your customers and expand the organization, but here's how you keep the family intact, as well as focusing on family to make sure you're growing and nurturing each other as family members? What's one thing that you would mention to them?
Boy, one thing's that's a hard limit to put on there.
or a couple things.
Yeah, no, I think what's so dynamic is being now second generation in the business. And, the earliest stages, we saw it from the ground up. The first employees of the business were mom, you know, daughter, son. I mean, we're all working together. And then it was, who are your best friends? Well, they work for the business. I mean, it was just intensely dysfunctional and fun and rewarding and challenging and all of these things at the very beginning. And then, what we've seen grow and change and happen. I'm the oldest of four. I'm the only one still involved in the business. And, dad is now obviously out of the business because of his Alzheimer's being advanced the way it is. Mom is still the majority owner, but yet is mostly stepped out of any day-to-day activity in the business. And so the dynamic shifts, right? The dynamic and the feeling and the vibe shifts. And so for me, the leadership challenges have been taking the good pieces of the family component, the family culture that we had, and making sure that they stick, but then also recognizing that we don't look like the same family business that we used to. There's obviously massive amounts of value personally on driving long-term value for the family and making sure that, we're all set up well for the future. But that is only one component. There's, the 250 lives that are directly impacted as employees and all of their families, and we're caring dramatically and specifically about them as well, and trying to build value for them and a business that's sustained and successful and takes great care of them. So yeah, the dynamics now have shifted from truly being a family business to now growing out of that, growing up, maturing. Businesses go through different phases, and we're really now in that professionalizing those areas that no more yelling and screaming in the halls as it used to be done. We're bringing that awesome. We're maturing in that process of a business that's now been around for a few years, more than a few years, and growing into a sizable business, and having to have to take that step up,
sure,
and come out of some of those things. But yeah, sure. I mean, it's still truly, it's still a family business, but the dynamics have shifted.
Sure. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you mentioning that. And I really appreciate our conversation today. I can't thank you enough. And I don't want people to lose sight of different things that you said. So I want to do a little bit of a recap, because these are my takeaways. So James, you are a very successful individual. Okay. So you're a very successful person, but yet through the entire duration of our conversation, you were really focused on others, even in your conversation, which just shows the culture that you've created. So the first thing that you had mentioned was, instead of focusing on rah motivation, you focus really on shifting gears and empowering your team members to have a purpose and to feel heard. And you set the pace, the premise for empowering them to feel heard. So you focused on team. The second thing is, you really focused on your customers. You constantly were talking about, how do we make it best for the customers? Even when situations and challenges, unprecedented challenges arise, how do we really focus on the customers? So I appreciate that. And then you really focused on family and the service that your family was passionate about. You had mentioned your father, you had mentioned your mother, you had mentioned your daughter in a story regarding how you're bringing her into the fold, not forcing her, but just exposing her to different situations she wouldn't get in school, right, through your organization. So that's been the three different things that you had focused on, was team, customers, and family. And there's a tremendous amount of wisdom in what you said. So I really recommend that everyone listening to this really focus on this and figure out how you can create more of a culture around these three different things that James mentioned. So James, again, I really, really appreciate our conversation. If anyone wants to find out more information on the Witmer Public Safety Group, where would they go?
Sure. Well, our web address for the corporate business is wpsginc.com. Okay. That tells the story of sort of the organization. And then our main e-commerce websites, they're all connected. So sure. thefirestore.com, all one word. So and then you can see all the rest of our web properties right there.
Perfect. Awesome. So to make it extremely convenient for everyone, I will have that in the show notes. You can just click and go right to those two web pages. So James, thanks again. I know you're a busy individual, so thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate our conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate the invite, and I'm glad to do this.
Thank you for listening to the Stories with Traction podcast. If you have a story that you would like to share, feel free to drop an email to matt@mattzaun.com with the subject line Stories with Traction. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, where I share tons of resources on how you can be a better storyteller. Remember, if you want to persuade with power and inspire those around you to action, you must share more stories.